Okay, good morning. We're continuing Tzadivav, the Siman of Davar Charif and Dukkha de Sakina. Okay. You guys just pointed out very nicely yesterday that when you cut your radish in half with a meat knife and you want to eat that radish with cheese, so you have to remove Kedei Netila, right? So the fun question was, well, which knife do you use to cut off the Kedei Netila? So obviously you can't be using another knife that's meat if you want to use the rest for cheese. Your Kedei Netila will never end. It has to either be a part of knife or it could be a milchak knife, and that's fine too because you're planning to eat the rest of it with milchaks. Okay. Okay. So let's go on. Haga. V'im chatchan. This is in the middle of Aleph, right? Seif Aleph. The Haga. Rama. V'im chatchan dak. Now let's say you're going to chop up your entire radish. For us, it depends on the family, but for us, it's more commonly onions. And you're going to start chopping it all up with the same knife, basar, and you chop up the entire onion or radish. Then, tzarich l'sha'er shishim neged kol hatznon. Then now you're going to have to end up making sure that you have shishim. Right. If you're going to now mix that snon with or onion with your cheese lasagna, whatever it is, your cheese, in order for the radish or onion not to trafe up or basar b'chala of your lasagna, your cheese, you have to make sure you have shishim cheese connected the entire radish, because by chopping up your radish, you turn the whole radish into essentially a piece of meat, halachically. So that's why you need to have shishim connected the whole snon. Now, may or not be obvious. It probably is if you think about the calculations. He points out, and I think you guys pointed out yesterday, Reuven. So it depends. Basically, the shach, you can look at it two ways. If the most that you have to, let's say your radish is bigger than your blade of the knife. So you don't have to go by the entire, you don't need shishim keneged the entire radish, you only need shishim keneged the entire knife or the entire portion of the knife that was used. Because you can't get more than the meat that comes out of the knife to go into the radish. We do not say chanan by a radish while it's still a davar heter. You only say chanan by basar b'chalav, according to everybody, halachically, Shulchan Aruch Rama, when it becomes mixed, then you say chanan. While it's still a heter, there's no chanan. And however, according to the Rama comes out, who holds by Shari Surim Chanan, if you use a treif knife with a davar charif, then even if the knife is smaller, you do say chanan, it has to be the entire radish. But by regular basar b'chalav, the most it has to be shishim is keneged the radish or keneged the knife, whichever is smaller. Okay. You know what? Maybe I'll bring it up now. I'm not sure the best place to bring it up. A couple interesting things. This I think we mentioned yesterday, just a quote from the Psachim and Tshuvos, that if it's something that's very soft, there's no issue whatsoever, as long as it's, even if it's going to be a davar charif. But he would say by butter, if it's a clean knife, there's no problem by a soft butter, cake, baked apple, anything soft that you're not going to have any pressure with the knife, he also says is not a problem.
It's not a davar charif.
I know, but I think his point is even if it would be a davar charif, there's no dukkha de sakina. So you do have to worry about shamnunit unless it's you know that it was clean, which we discussed before. Okay, I did ask previously, this is interesting. What's the difference? I think a couple days ago we left it as a question or a riddle. What's the difference if you have a clean knife in a drawer or you did ni'itza on the knife? So it comes out, I was able to think of about three different differences. All right, so most of the poskim point out you can use lechatchila, a meat knife, to cut something part of, like challah, and then use that same challah to eat, put butter and cheese on it, because it's, you know that it's clean. You don't have to do ni'itza bakarka if everything's going to be not salty and everything is cold, and you're dealing with the parv in the middle. So that's one difference. Like lechatchila, you're allowed to do that. I'll just point out that's true lechatchila according to the Taz, Chachmas Adam, and the Pri Chadash, and also brought down in more modern Sfarim by like Psakim Mechuvas or Pischei Tshuva. Pischei Tshuvas. But anyways, the Shach, if you look at it, this is back actually from Siman Pei Tet. Taz is Siv Katan Vav, and the Shach is in Kaf Bet. There the Shach holds, you're not supposed to lechatchila, you're not allowed to lechatchila, use a meat knife for challah, and then put butter on that challah. So that's the Shach, and Rabbi Kiva Eger as well. Okay, but that's one main difference between clean and ne'itza. Because we see sometimes it has to be clean and sometimes it has to be ne'itza. So I'm just trying to put some clarity when you need which. Also, bedi'evid. Now this next example is bedi'evid. Let's say you use a milchik knife to cut, it could be either one, right? It goes in either direction. Take a milchik knife and now you cut meat with it. So we know if it's hot, it goes maybe, I think we said kulo. But if everything is hot, the meat is hot, whatever, the meat was hot. So I think we learned it's kulo. If we say, but now, let's say everything is cold, so then what's the halacha? So we learned by a davar charif, here. If it's cold, so then you only need, then it's fine, bedi'evid. Bedi'evid, you take a milchik knife that was clean, and you cut a piece of meat that was cold and not charif, then you don't have to do anything. It's kosher lechatchila at that point. Even if the knife is ben yomo, because it's 100% clean. Ni'itza would need it to save you from a davar charif. But if it's cold and it's clean, you know it's clean, which I think we most say it is clean from the drawer, then you bedi'evid. You take a milchik knife, you cut a cold piece of meat, it's warm, not yet, so let it go, and it's mutter lechatchila to eat it without even doing kedei klipa. Again, that's in Psakim Chuvas and Pischei Chuvas. Now, what if it's a davar charif? So then, if you cut it, similar case, but now it's a davar charif. So then, bedi'evid, what do you need to do? So we just learned yesterday in the Shulchan Aruch, you have to do kedei netila. If it's a milchik knife with a davar charif, it goes kedei netila, but that's only because of the shamnunit alav. If you know it was clean, you only have to do kedei klipa, and that's mefurish in the Kreisio places. Okay. One last trivia thing. I forget where I've seen it numerous times. Hopefully we'll see it or you'll point it out. Whenever you need to do ni'itza, it's also fine just to do hagala. Anytime you need to do ni'itza, as long as it's clean, take a sponge, soap, hot water, whatever, it's clean, then hagala works for instead of ni'itza. Okay, which sometimes is recommended. Anyways, depends on the case. Fine. Let's continue in the Ramah. V'yesh omrim shimchatach snon b'sakin shel eser kulo aser. So we just learned that if you cut a radish, how much you have to take away? The Shulchan Aruch says kedei netila. The Ramah says wait, kedei kulo. So that's actually an interesting machlokas. In this case, it's a interesting. The Shach points out, Perush, Bein b'sakin shel basar, bein b'sakin shel goy, noagin lechatchila le'esor kula. That's, but you're right. The Ramah writes Isser, the Shach says either one. Okay. And then b'di'evid, once it gets cooked, so then he goes kedei netila b'di'evid. In other words, if you cut it with Isser, we say the whole thing is Asr, throw it away. But let's say you didn't, and now you cooked in a pot, you only have to Asr shishim keneged kedei netila, because it's a chumrah of the Ramah. In other words, the Ramah holds mikar din. I agree with the Shulchan Aruch, which is common, but he's machmer for this other shita, and it's based on again, we mentioned this yesterday, chiltis. Chazal only gave two examples of davar charif. One was tznon and one was chiltis. The Gemara only says that it's oser kulo, or it's davar charif could be oser kulo, or eno ben yomo, almost like choser v'ner, and it turns tam lefgam into shvach. It only says that by chiltis. So the Shulchan Aruch says shkoyach, the halacha only applies to chiltis. It doesn't say it by tznon. And the Gemara doesn't even say there's davar charif on any other item, except those two. And so anyway, so the Ramah, you see, is machmer to say all kinds of davar charif have the same din as a chiltis in this halacha. Just to explain that, and just so you understand, a davar chiltis, we actually learned it inside. It's mentioned in Shulchan Aruch, Rambam. I'm not sure if it's in the Gemara or not. Probably. It says a koret shel chiltis can make an animal a treifa. If you remember, it's a nun aleph, hilchas treifas. If dalid says if you swallow, my son Uri pointed that out, and if you point that if an animal swallows it, you have I think we assume, I forget exactly what level, but I think it's treifa. You can say it's a din as a treifa. You swallow, you can look it up. If you see an animal swallow, we assume it's going to burn a hole and not give in the b'nei me'ayim, and it turns it into a treifa. So we don't know what a chiltis is, and so it's hard to learn. The Shulchan Aruch doesn't learn from a chiltis to other davar charifs for obvious reasons. Okay, let's continue. Okay. No, I know. You can also look at the Gra if you want. He explains it a little better. And he says the Rosh argues and says chiltis doesn't apply to. I think chiltis is chiltis. Okay, but anyway, let's go on. V'chein im chatcho b'sakin shel basar aser kulo b'chalav. So now, if you, it seems to be here mefurish in the Ramah, if you take a piece of a meat knife and you cut it into davar charif, so now the whole thing is aser even for milk. So here you see it in the Ramah as well. And that's the minhag lechatchila. Aval b'di'evid ein le'sorah kadei netila. Okay, that's all in the Ramah. Okay, v'kol zeh im chatach hatznon atzmo. And now all of this is if you're just cutting the tznon. Im chatach the actual radish. Im chatach hayerek she'al tznon ein lachush. But the leaves, whatever that's attached to the radish, that's not a davar charif. It's only the vegetable or whatever, the radish itself, that's a davar charif. It's obvious when you taste it which part is a charif and which part is not. Okay. Ve'im yesh safek im nechtach b'sakin shel eser. You're not sure. You see a radish cut. You're not sure what knife was used. Azlin on the kula. We go lakula, that's fine. Lachein konim atznona sheish behem chituchin letzad znavotehen kadei talinan shenase b'mara v'chatzina. So anytime you see a cut in a vegetable, you go to the store, right? And how it applies nowadays in those days is a little different, but the principle is identical. Anytime you go to a store and you see that they cut off the ends of the radish itself, near where the plant or the stem or whatever it is, it's not a problem. Because we're not worried that they used a treif knife, because we know that these are professionals, they're doing it by the hundreds. they have special tools. They have their mara v'chatzina, whatever their tools are, and those tools are only used for radish. They're not used for anything else. So you don't have to assume that one day they came with a treif knife. We don't assume wild assumptions. ובמקום שאין נמצא לקנות רק החתוכים וסכין, נוהגים לקנות ולהתיר על ידי נטילת מקום. And even if you know that they might be using their knives, so then it's still okay just to kedei netila.
One of the gardening tools.
Yeah, the gardening tools.
That's the hoe and somebody using for the harvesting. Sakin is in the marketplace.
Right, exactly. So, okay. Right. He says, the Taz explains, l'chadchila, don't buy it when you know they're using their knives to cut it, because maybe it's a treif knife. But b'diavad, you have no choice. It becomes, if you have no choice, that's what's available in the store, then it becomes a case of b'diavad. And now, l'chadchila, you are allowed to buy it, but just take away kedei netila. And fine. And that's, brings you back to the Ikr Din of the Shulchan Aruch. Okay. Let's see, do we want to continue? I think we mentioned before, any time it's between eating the radish, this radish that was cut with meat per se, you don't have to wait 6 hours to have milchiks afterwards. We may have said that before. Okay. Let's read back. Im chatach bo shumin ubetzalim ukreshim. Now, if you cut garlic or onions or kreshim, I forgot what that is. Crane? Tamcha, shekorian crane, exactly. The Ramah tells you, that's why I didn't write it down. So it's crane. Chayotze behen. Midvarim acharifim. Anything that we consider a davar charif. So we mentioned this is a machlokas rishonim, but here the Shulchan Aruch is machmer, that anything that's considered very spicy, sharp, that's called a davar charif. Not tangy, little citrus fruit in general. Those are not issues. Kiwis, everyone agrees, those are not issues. We'll see about lemons. Upeirot, I'll just say lemons are also considered a davar charif. Let's keep going on. Upeirot chamutzim, and salted fruits and vegetables are also considered charif, davar charif. V'dagim meluchim, and also fish that's salted. Dino shave lachtoch bo tznon. Right? I think herring would be included. So here you have very salty fish. It also has the same din as a davar charif, exactly the same as cutting snon, radishes. Right? Our prime example. Umikol makom mutar lechol merkachat charifim shel goyim kegon zingavel uchayotze bo deyesh lahem kelim yuchadim lekach o toshin oto. But if you're going to buy it, stuff from the jars, from the factories in bulk, again, if it applies today exactly or not, it's a separate question, but the principle is here. Anytime they're using those utensils for, they're only using the knife for fruit. They're only using it for even spices. If they have miyuchadim, then you don't have to worry that they use those same knives that they use it already with the davar eser to use it with the davar charif. Again, you have to look into the metzias, and that's why we have kashrus organizations, but this is the general principle. Okay, now, is it anything that's spicy? So, let's see. Maybe we'll point it out here. Yeah, so the Shach points out, when we said salty, it says it's mashma according to the Mechaber that anytime it's salty, it has to be kedei netila, and according to the Ramah, it would be kula. Except b'diavad, the Ramah would agree kedei netila. That's what we said. And the Shach continues, when we say salty, it has to be extremely salty. But just a little bit of salt wouldn't do anything. So the Shach is unclear what he would say about pickles. Maybe you need to do kedei netila. Maybe more, maybe just scrape it off or rub it off. We're going to see about cucumbers later. would be greda, wouldn't be just rubbing. Let me just say, according to the Madane Shulchan for pickles. So he says, if it's Lamaisa says, if it's an Eno ben Yomo, then only a klipa is sufficient. Unless it's a super salty pickle that you can't eat it by itself. You need to eat it with a piece of bread, which may be the case by herring. If it's very salty, then you need to do kadei netila or kulo. If it's just a normal pickle, he holds kadei klipa. But if it's a ben yomo, then ben yomo still, you for sure need to do kadei klipa, he also writes. And it's not so salty. So here, let me continue. Right, we said that. I'll just quote from you from the Sefer Psakim Chuvos, right? I think that's the son of the who wrote Piskei Chuvos. That's the 6th volume on here. I've been quoting it, but I'll just say now, the 6th volume that many of us are familiar in Piskei Chuvos, that's on Orach Chaim only. And I think it was a son, maybe son-in-law, whatever. I think it's a son who wrote Psakim or Chuvos. He changed the name a drop, and he has it on parts of Yoreh. So he categorizes, he says in the poskim, there's 2 types of a davar charif. Some that are very charif, and some that are only a little bit charif. So again, depends who you ask on all these different foods, besides tznon and chiltis, there are different opinions on what you call charif, and how much do you need to worry about? Kulo, kadei netila, or klipa. So anyways, there's going to be different opinions on the issues. I'll just point out real quick, what he considers for sure a davar charif, similar to radishes, would be garlic. Right? Because the Shulchan Aruch and Ramah agree that any davar charif has the same halacha of tznon, if it's a davar charif. So then it's garlic, regular onions, we saw, hot peppers, and very salty fish, probably herring. And then what he says are things that are only a little bit charif, that we're still machmor for lechatchila, is pickles, lemon, actually green onions. They're not as salty as white ones. That's what he writes. Olives is included. He puts pickles in that category. And he writes that you could be meko with there's a hefsid with an eno ben yomo, probably just kadei klipa, or if it just mixes in. But anyways, different opinions. I'm not an expert of radishes. I'll just quote from the Aruch Shulchan. He says not all radishes are created equal. He says not lechatchila, but only behefsid maruba, you could be makel with white radishes. That I'm not sure how makel, probably kadei klipa, or something like that. Behefsid maruba. Which one? Psakim uchuvos?
Psakim uchuvot.
Yeah, psakim uchuvot. Instead of piskei chuvos, it's psakim chuvos. And okay, that's that. And in general, many poskim on the whole category of slightly charif, many poskim are mekel b'diavad, behefsid maruba. Again, to what extent depends on the case. And most of the poskim, psakim chuvos, piskei chuvos says that once, what's it called, fried and cooked onions are not davar charif. That's what most hold. We mentioned, I think one of you mentioned, Ruve mentioned it earlier, that because we all know it's sweet once you cook it. But it only helps you if you're going to cut through the cooked onions, because when you first put it on there, it's a davar charif, and it gets you out to let it go while it's charif. It takes maybe a few minutes, I don't know how many, but then till it finally loses it and starts to become sweet. You know what, before we finish, we'll stop here. All right, that's it.
But doesn't that, if you're cooking the onion in a fleshly frying pan.
Cooking an onion in a fleshik,